And here we go. The World Chess Championship match 2024 has started.
This is a super aggressive move from Gukesh.
0.1 advantage for Ding now. Instant
Played
reply.
quickly again?
And he plays the bishop to g5 as if it was the most natural thing in the world.
I think this is a brilliant move by Ding.
Is he now winning? Gukesh, he is looking devastated right now.
Yeah, resignation. Ding has
It's
won.
over. The World Chess Championship match 2024 started with a bang. Reigning champion and underdog Ding Liren came out swinging. He won game 1 to take the lead in the match. And we wish you a warm welcome to the first Take recap show. Joining us from Singapore, he's a 5 times world chess champion in classical chess, Magnus Carlsen. It's great to see you and have you in the recap show.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Magnus, I asked a bunch of people for predictions before the World Chess Championship match. All of them were just focusing on Gukesh, but you said you thought Ding Liren would take the first win. You predicted this.
No, so the thing is, there were 2 possible scenarios I thought for this match. Either Gukesh wins an early game and wins in a blowout, or it's some kind of even match. And obviously this first result, without spoiling a lot, means that we are much more likely, I think, now to see an even match. And Gukesh was nervous today, which is not a surprise. But what was a surprise to me, and I think a lot of others, is how ready Ding was to take his chance. And that was really impressive.
Wow. We're going to bring in our other expert joining from New York City. He is the known Gotham chess Levy Rozman. Hey, Levy, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me. To be called an expert on this panel is quite something. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you definitely are an expert on recaps, Levy. And I mentioned you're in New York City. The game started at 4 a.m. Were you able to follow the drama and action today?
Live, no. I said, listen, I love chess, but not to this extent. Although I had trouble sleeping. Like, I knew there was something exciting to wake up to. It sort of feels like waking up when you know you have a flight. So I slept maybe at like 1:30. And by the time I woke up, I couldn't go back to sleep. I was watching the game and watching all this insanity unfold.
Yeah, it definitely was crazy. And let's jump right into it. I want you guys now to discuss and agree on the most exciting moment. I throw it to you first, Levy. What was the most exciting moment in the game today?
I would say it's the middle game between, let's say, moves 18 and 22. There was a series of moves there that Ding basically played instantly. And by the end of it, he had his first very, very serious advantage. That was the moment where he took a 47-minute time disadvantage and ended with a 4 to 5 minute time advantage itself. And that to me was very fascinating because on the 7th move, he spent half an hour and looked really, really distraught. So, I mean, at that point, my head started spinning. I was like, was it all an act? I mean, I had absolutely no idea. And then obviously there was, still some twists and turns, but that was very exciting to see Ding playing fast, confident, just, dominating the position, and then ultimately going on to win.
I was following the game on the app, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I was seeing how quickly Ding was playing and the confidence he was playing with around those times, because it's not like any of his moves individually are that difficult. It's just that actually playing them, moving forward, spotting all those little tactics that he had to spot in order for this to work. It was not reminiscent of the Ding we've seen recently. Yes, like as we will discuss later, there were moments afterwards that were not perfect, but I think if you're a Ding fan, that has got to be super, super encouraging. And yeah, for Levy, I think, and for chess fans who want this to be an even contest, that was tremendously exciting to see. Because at that moment, like we saw a proper top player, a person who's capable of becoming world champion, and we haven't seen that for a while. So that was fun.
Yeah. We all thought Ding Liren would be sort of the shaky player. We were anxious to see if young Gukesh at 18 years old would feel the nerves of his world championship match. So what do you think of the body language of the players today?
So this is the thing. I'm sure Gukesh knows about this whole thing. I know that my dad talked about it with you.
Yep.
I felt it myself back in the day. Everybody talks about it. The World Championship is a bit different. You feel a different kind of pressure. And no matter how much people tell you about it, you cannot be completely prepared for it. So you see people again and again and again in their first match, they're a bit shaky at the start. I was that. I think Jan was that against me. Ding was very much so in his first match. So that's why a lot of us, or some of us, probably thought that the very first games would be a time where Ding, if he has it in him, which I think also people were not sure about, that was the time he could strike because it was likely that Gukesh would be excessively nervous. And Ding talked about it himself. He played the French, which he also did against Jan, by the way, but hasn't really ventured into since, which was an excellent psychological choice. Yes, he ended up being surprised, but his position always felt playable. Like I was looking at the evaluation during the game and seeing that Dukesh was a little bit better, but I didn't really get it. It felt to me like Ding's position was very playable. He had a concrete target to put a knight on a great outpost, attack Gukesh's weak backwards pawns, and obviously his preparation was not great, but his overall strategy and mindset, I think, were surprisingly good. And Gukesh, for his fans, he was every bit as shaky as you might fear. I escaped with a draw in my first games against Anand. If I hadn't, who knows? History could have been a little bit different, but certainly this was the most interesting outcome of the first game.
And Levy, Ding actually didn't leave his chair until the game had lasted 4 hours and 7 minutes, I think. What do you think about his body language? Are you surprised at his confidence?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of things to say. First of all, I recall the match he played versus Nepo, and 80% of the match they weren't at the board. I mean, there were so many scenes that the chairs are just empty. I don't think any sort of sponsor looks at that like very fondly. But Ding is very open about some of his struggles, and I do wonder if that puts a bit of pressure on his opponents. Like I spoke to Jan Nepomniachtchi, who himself said it felt weird to play a player who was so down on himself. And maybe Gukesh experienced some of that as well. I will say this: look, I've never played a world championship. I never will play a world championship. I played a heads-up match against, Pia Kramling in Sweden. That was a few weeks ago.
Congrats on your win.
And thank you. But going into that match and even losing the first game, I felt maybe the same way as Gukesh feels. Like all of the anxiety going into a heads-up match is, what is the worst thing that can happen? And it happens. You lose with white, and you just feel in complete disarray. But most of the negative emotions and anxiety goes away when you actually sit down at the board. Maybe not for Ding, but evidently in the middle of this game it did. And so, look, it's just one game. I also don't think necessarily it will be a rout. And if Gukesh gets a draw in the second game with black and then has another chance with white, we could go the distance. But yeah, today was a day where the worst possible outcome could have happened for Gukesh. I mean, if he dreamt it up, a disastrous game with white and losing. Okay, but now you know that the worst is over. You still have potentially 13 more games to play. So,
Magnus, was it a good choice of opening for both players?
Well, in terms of Gukesh, this is what he does. He very often goes a little bit his own way, and he plays very ambitiously. And this is the most ambitious way to play against the French. So in that sense, it was true to style. And I don't know what Ding was preparing, since this is like it's not one of the like 2 or 3 main things probably you prepare with Black against the French, but it's the most ambitious. So like it's got to be up there as something that you definitely look at. So I don't know if he was trying to recall something. Maybe they were going off more like vibes there. It's like, you go in that case, you go A4, A5, A4, and as long as you don't castle, the white initiative on the king side is really not that dangerous. And if you see, apart from the time usage and the fact that Ding was evidently uncomfortable, like he did the right things. Like maybe his play was not perfect, but he got good counterplay, and there never was a moment in the game where Gukesh had any obvious way to sort of untangle and get a clear advantage. It didn't need to obviously get outplayed in the way that he did, but from the very start, when Ding played the move A5, you can say that from when he took that big think, he had a clear target, he followed it, and he won the game. That pawn on A3 actually ended up deciding a lot of things.
Wow.
That knight that he carved out a square for, it was instrumental. That weakness that he created, the pawn on C3, it all it all came together. So you cannot help but say that this was a good choice for Ding, because again, like he sensed that maybe he felt like he didn't have so much to lose. Maybe that was part of it, but he went for a daring, but I think very good strategy. Like, for all we've said about Ding, like he's been there before, and that it seems that it actually matters. And for all the pressure that he may have felt, it seemed that Gukesh had it worse.
And usually you get out of the opening by castling. Ding didn't castle until move 31. His king was in the middle of the board there for a long time. Levy, is that shocking?
Yeah, I listen. I have to constantly show Magnus games to the audience and tell them like he can do this, and I would not recommend if you do this. Today in the recap, I had to say castling on move 31, just like you were taught in every basics video. But maybe there was one moment that Ding could have castled, and he would have been okay. But he kept the king in the center because. And maybe we can pull this up on the board. I see we have it on the screen. I mean, there was a moment like before castling, he could have used his H pawn for some counterplay.
Yeah, I think there was one moment where he went rook to C4, just a few moves before this.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was probably the one moment where castling was both logical and very, very strong, seeing as the white pieces are so incredibly passive that it makes sense. The shocking thing is rather that Gukesh actually allowed castling when he had the chance to prevent it.
That was on move 30. I don't know if we can pull
Yeah.
that up, but that was kind of shocking. And I do wonder, was that overthinking? Is queen c2 a result of overthinking? Like you play bishop c5 offhand, basically. I mean, and maybe not offhand, that's a strong statement, but okay, you lose the g4 pawn, but black will not be castling basically ever. So
this is what I've been talking about before. Gukesh doesn't make these moves by hand. Bad or good, he doesn't. He calculates. He didn't like something about bishop c5. I don't know what on earth he missed after queen c2. He may not make the move that 95% of grandmasters would make, because he's calculating something. And this time, yeah, it cost him probably his best chance, honestly, in the last 20 moves of the game.
So I'll jump to the next topic. We need to talk about highlights from the game. You mentioned a few of them. What moment did Ding Liren win this, Magnus?
That is I think we can say castling.
Okay.
At that moment, the game was won. It was an obvious move, but you still had to see a couple of details afterwards. Like it was still possible to overthink it, but I think at this moment we were at a point where even Ding, for all sort of the negativity that has been around his play, like how he has not been able to even really try to win favorable positions in his last few tournaments. This was a position where it's like, well, he's not gonna mess this up. Like this is too good and too safe of a position for him to even think about anything other than a win.
I know Magnus is a basketball fan, so I will. You know that there's an interview with Russell Westbrook in the locker room where they ask him, "Did you guys win this one, or did the Jazz lose this one?" And he's bewildered at the question. I almost feel like a little bit of this was also Gukesh losing the game, as opposed to Ding sort of willing it, to a victory. And yeah, it's that move 30 moment which we already discussed, which is sort of this move that Gukesh could have played Bishop C5, and he disallows Ding from castling. He tries to fight back into the game with his queen and his rook battery on the F file. And if he didn't go for this, then it was all hope was lost. That's how it felt. It's very easy now to watch the games with an engine, and for folks at home to go, on move 27, Ding made a mistake. He took the pawn on e6, which we can scroll back to 3 moves here. He took the pawn on e6 with his bishop, not his pawn. Oh my God, what's he doing? I don't know. To me, like, if you watch the chess game with no evaluation bar, it's a very different story.
So what we can say is that this was a very good performance by Ding. Clearly, his best performance in a long time. But it was also a terrible performance. Like we can't it's hard to understate how bad this was from Gukesh. Like he didn't make a single good decision basically the whole game. Like everything was wrong. He made an aggressive opening choice, but after that it was just all. So when you're asking what was there one big mistake or just a bunch of inaccuracies, honestly there were both. This is the worst possible start. Maybe that will give him some relief in that, well, I cannot really play worse than I did today. Because this was, imagine like you just do sort of everything wrong. You let Ding outplay you. Like not that Ding didn't take it because he made a lot of good decisions himself, but then also like when you're let a little bit back into the game, then you overthink it and lose without a fight. Like that is I've done that many times. I'm sure you've done it as well, Levy, when you feel that you're getting a chance to get back and then to blow it and just lose without a fight, it's a horrible feeling. Yeah, your character is not gonna feel good about this game.
Yeah. Now, definitely Ding was the MVP in this game. We're going to talk about the most valuable piece on the board. What do you think was the MVP in this game?
I think it was the Black Queen. Black Queen did a ton of damage, infiltrated the white position, took 3 pawns, I think, by the end of the game. 4 pawns by the end of the game, if not, 4 pawns, took half the white pawns, and ultimately delivered the final blow. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue.
I will give an honorable mention to the Black Knight as well. You don't often see these moves like knight to b2 earlier in the game. Like you don't often have an outpost that deep into your opponent's camp, and it also seems weird that you're just putting a knight on a square where it doesn't attack anything, but it actually like opens up the attack and covers the d3 square where the queen could go later on, which was surprisingly important. It covers the square for the rook as well. So I want to give that knight an honorable mention. And I cannot like overstate the importance of Ding just playing these moves that we're going through right now. Jumping in with the knight, jumping in with the queen, all of these moves, he played them so quickly and confidently. It was so heartening to see. So yeah, I agree with Levy. Queen, definite MVP, but I love the work of the knight as well.
We have to also name the piece of beep. Which one was the worst piece today?
I'm gonna say actually his queen, probably. I think a lot of his queen moves were actually quite bad. I think queen e3 was poor. Then queen c2 was definitely poor. Well, queen e1 wasn't great either, but that was kind of necessary, and yeah, it never really did anything useful whatsoever. Queen b1, the lone sort of actually good move that he made with the queen, but I think the queen nods it for me.
Do you agree, Levy?
Yeah, and that was like a bit of a walk-off statement.
Yeah.
I also was thinking queen, and I'll tell you why. My first instinct said this pawn on a2, right? Like the pawn that ultimately fell on the left corner of the screen there, and won black the game. But then I had this thought and was thinking, that pawn cannot be blamed for the failings of the other white pieces. You cannot blame the child for bad parenting, And I just feel like the white queen really, really failed in this game, which led to the other pieces spiraling. And I don't think you can blame a sad little pawn on a2 that never even had a chance to move. So yeah, I'll have to agree. It's the queens. It's the one was an MVP and one was not.
We need to place the match bar, you guys. So we're a big fan of the bar, evaluation bar in each game. Is it in favor of Gukesh? Where is the bar in the match?
I probably would have put it at about 80% for Gukesh before the match.
Wow.
And now I think it is as close to 50-50 as you get.
Interesting.
Maybe closer to 55% for Gukesh still, but let's say 50-50. I think this is a very even match now.
All right. Levy, do you agree?
I felt like Gukesh might have some nerves, and now that we see that he has them, yeah, I don't know. I would say maybe 55% to Ding. And if this, because he knows what it's like to be 28-20, 28-16, I think was his official peak. Like he knows what it's like to be a dominant chess powerhouse. And he played in one of these matches before, and he's played, tie breaks against Magnus in St. Louis, not to bring up bad memories, let's say, but like he's been there, and Gukesh just started in the worst way possible. So I would even say it's back over 50% for Ding, but we might be having a totally separate conversation tomorrow. So let's see.
What do you think, Magnus, with Ding having the white pieces tomorrow and probably feeling better and more confident than in a long time?
If I were to put my money, I would say on Ding consolidating, playing something quite solid, maybe some kind of mini try. For instance, I don't think we'll see any sort of like sharp Italians or anything like that. So my bet would be on Ding trying to play very solidly, and Gukesh going, look, I don't want to, like, I cannot win the match tomorrow, but I could almost lose the match tomorrow. So I don't think he's gonna go crazy, but I hope I'm wrong.
It's going to be very interesting, intense, and exciting. Levy and Magnus, thank you so much for your insights and predictions and recap of the first game, and for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. We will be back with another recap after Game 2 tomorrow. And remember to download the Take app to get notified when Game 2 starts and when all the action is happening. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
We have two players and we have no idea what to expect from.
He has the spark which we see in champions.
They've been waiting for this moment for so long.
From the time when I was a little kid.
I haven't lost with him in classical.